Welcome to Running Shoes Guru. I'm Brandon, and today we are reviewing the Saucony Triumph 18. The Triumph 17 was literally flawless. So how do you improve the perfect shoe? The very first thing that caught my attention when I opened up the box was the Triumph 18's brand new chiseled Power Run Plus midsole. It felt rougher to the touch and it had dimples compared to last year's smooth Power Run Plus midsole. When compressing the foam with my fingers, it felt a bit firmer than last year's version and reminded me of the Everrun of the Triumph ISO versions. The upper looked like it had gone on a 6-month diet. It just looked less puffy than the Triumph 17, which had a chunky heel counter. The midfoot overlays are also gone on the Triumph 18. Saucony claims that the Triumph 18 is snappier than the Triumph 17. So I flexed the shoe to test it out. It still bends in the middle of the shoe, but now it snaps back into place much quicker. My first run in the Triumph 18 was a long 32-kilometer run, and they were comfortable right out of the box, no braking required. The lacing required no adjusting, and the upper conformed to my feet immediately. The upper of the Triumph 18 is a masterpiece, and it rivals Brooks as one of the most luxurious uppers that you can buy. It has a plush, thick tongue which protects you from lacing pressure, and the tongue is attached to an inner sleeve, so no tongue slide occurs. The engineered jacquard mesh is now thinner and more breathable than the previous version, but it's still one of the warmer shoes on the market, and it's more suited to cooler climates. All the thick padding absorbs sweat, so it will gain weight during runs. The biggest update to the upper is the addition of a hard internal heel counter. There's now more structure and support in the heel area, and heel lockdown is noticeably better. This addition does come at a cost though, as the Triumph 18 is heavier than the Triumph 17. The Triumph 18's upper is roomier than the Triumph 17. The main contributor being that its heel counter is not as plump, so the foot sits further back in the shoe, freeing up space in the forefoot. Even though the Triumph 18 is roomier, it still runs true to size. The toe box is spacious and deep, and there's a lot of room for your toes to splay. The ride of the Triumph 18 hasn't changed much. It's rare that a shoe lives up to the marketing claims, but the Power Run Plus midsole of the Triumph 18 lives up to the hype, and it's still one of my favorite super foams. It's soft without being mushy, it's responsive without being too firm, and it's also not as heavy as other older TPU foams. All of these characteristics make the Triumph 18 the perfect shoe for relaxed long runs at paces over 6 minutes per kilometer. The difference between the Triumph 18 and other max cushion trainers is that it has more pop because of the bouncy quality of the Power Run Plus midsole. So my legs feel fresher for longer during runs. At the end of runs in the Triumph 18, I always feel like I can run a little bit further. I like the Triumph 18 for long weekend runs above 25 kilometers or very slow recovery runs. But it also isn't energy sapping, so it can be used as a daily trainer if you prefer a plusher ride for the bulk of your training. Ride transitions are velvety smooth as a result of the uniform single density Power Run Plus midsole. Transitions are also smoother than the Triumph 17, as only one type of rubber is used on the outsole, compared to a combination of crystal and blown rubber on the Triumph 17. The outsole layout of the Triumph 18 is very similar to the Triumph 17, except now there are 2 wide channels which run vertically along the forefoot. Traction is now much better, and the Triumph 18 is not slippery on wet surfaces due to the absence of crystal rubber. Stability in the Triumph 18 is good. Your foot sits inside the midsole and not on top of it, and your feet sink down into the foam, so there's a distinct cupping sensation. This black part of the midsole that runs around the shoe acts like a rim or a guidance rail to help keep your feet centered. The base of the midsole is also very wide, so foot strikes feel planted. Durability is high. The Power Run Plus midsole is polyurethane, so it won't get firmer over time. I've also been very impressed with the blown rubber outsole, as it hasn't worn down much, even though it isn't crystal rubber anymore. The upper, midsole and outsole have all changed, but the Triumph 18 performs only slightly different to the Triumph 17. It definitely is an overall improvement, but a small one. Its mesh is more breathable, its new heel counter provides a better foot lockdown, and ride transitions are now smoother because there's only one type of rubber used on the outsole. Saucony has kept what worked well on the Triumph 17 and changed what didn't work. The Triumph 18 is a more polished, cooler shoe with slightly softer landings and better traction on wet surfaces due to the absence of hard crystal rubber. If you're looking for a max cushioned long distance trainer which still manages to feel springy, look no further than the Triumph 18. For me, the Triumph 18 still reigns supreme as the best max cushion trainer in its category. Thanks for watching our review. If you enjoyed the video, please like, favorite and subscribe to the channel. You can also read our full written review on runningshoesguru.com.